Hello, everybody. Robert Aducci here with Ulysses Spiel, Ulysses International, and we are going to talk about. Actually, we're going to read through the Torg Eternity Day 1 adventures. We're going to do the Pacifica adventure today, and this is all in support of the Stay at Home and Play initiative we're doing. You can go to the website to ulysses-us.com and find this link to this adventure. These adventures on Drive-Thru RPG. You can get them for as pay what you want right now. Along with the drama deck. There's also the Up the Creek Quick Start and a bunch of other adventures that are pay what you want. So please go check those out. If you can afford to throw a few dollars our way, go for it. If not, that's totally cool. We just want you guys playing the game. So we're reading through these adventures to just to kind of see what's in Torg, what Torg is, what kind of adventures you can expect to play in individual cosms. I also want to, just let everybody know we're still, the online convention, Ulysses Online Con, is happening next month, July 24th, July 26th through, looking at the wrong map. There you go. Yeah, the 24th through the 26th. So we will be releasing kind of the panels and what we're doing after that, and then we'll also let you know how you guys can sign up for games, how to sign up for the panels, how to run games if you want to help us out and run some games as well. So stay tuned for that. We just had a Great Ulysses Worlds news show yesterday. Check that out. It's on the website where we give the show notes, and then also on YouTube. We had JM DeFogie on. He's the lead writer for Myth Tales of Legend, as well as he's the GM for Torg and Fading Suns live play games. So he talks about the gamut of all that stuff. So go check that out. But let's get into this. So we're going to do Pacifica. And let me know how the music in the background is. If it's a little loud, let me know and I'll turn it down. Or if it's not loud enough, I can turn it up a little bit. But this music is the Torg Eternity soundtrack, which you can get on Drive-Thru RPG or from our store. So let's see, here we are, Pacifica. So all these adventures include Dramatis Personae, which are kind of like the base characters. So each of these adventures is sort of built in such a way that you're kind of playing different characters through each of these different adventures because they're all happening on the same day. And so you can't really play a single character over all of them. You could modify them, of course, if you wanted to have like a more ongoing campaign, but that would take a little bit of work. But it could definitely be done. But all these characters are right here. They're just sort of like your basic characters. They're ordinary characters right now, but they will become Storm Knights through a moment of crisis. You can get all of these characters as well in an actual character sheet. If you go to ulysses-us.com/downloads, they're there, so you can download them all individually. So your players can have individual characters. So let's get into it. This is by Bill Keys. All right. Pacifica's invasion isn't quite quiet or subtle, but it isn't obviously an invasion either. Rather, it's a disaster, an outbreak. Kanawha Corporation has been secretly consolidating its power over the past several months. Earlier, it planted biological bombs in major cities throughout East Asia, including Hong Kong, Nanjing, Shanghai, Taipei, Beijing, Seoul, and Tokyo. At the appointed time, these devices release a genetically modified and extremely virulent disease. Those infected go berserk, viciously attacking anyone nearby. Some mutate into monstrous creatures. The heroes are inside Tokyo's Harajuku shopping district when madness erupts all around them. The group lingers inside a shuttered store, then flees to an embattled shrine to stay ahead of the chaos and rioting. Finally, the survivors are driven to a site that contains a link to Kanawha's deadly plot. All the while, the infected horde spreads and follow the characters wherever they go. So, if you've played this adventure, let me know, in the chat. Let me know how it went, what your characters did, if they did anything different than as we read on. Scene 1, Horror in Harajuku. Standard scene. It's evening in the fashionable Harajuku district in Tokyo. The area is filled with fashionable boutiques, cafes, and and international chain stores. It's a center of youth culture where fashion-conscious teenagers and 20-somethings show off their latest trends. Harajuku is not and has never been a red light district, and the entertainment is mostly all ages friendly. Elsewhere in the district, the contagion is released. It spreads quickly, and as people succumb to the ravening throngs, spread the disease even faster. The heroes are unaware of what's happening nearby, for the moment. The sights of Harajuku. The streets buzz with activity as usual this evening. Businessmen head home after a long day's work. Hungry diners eat, shoppers come and go, and teens meet up with their friends. On a side street, the day businesses close, pulling down metal shutters as the night businesses begin to open. This is the infected hunger for something other than noodles. Nice. A few of the sights the characters may see as they walk the district include neon lights and giant TV screens light up the streets as though it were still daylight. Pretty girls stand in busy corners handing out packages of tissues advertising everything from mobile phones to nightclubs. Restaurant workers put out plastic replicas of the house specialties. A smiling girl in a bikini waves to passers-by from inside a pizza shop. A group of slightly drunk office workers stagger toward the karaoke box while giggling schoolgirls form knots and push into shops together. An impromptu street fashion show is performed by teens in elaborate costumes reminiscent of Renaissance plague doctors. There's a metallic tang in the air, a sense of tension that makes everyone slightly edgy. Maybe it's the news stories about strange attacks in India and the United States and massive riots across China and Korea. There aren't many details about the unrest, but that hasn't stopped the news from broadcasting live images and speculating wildly. All anybody seems to know is that the riots started spontaneously and the police are overwhelmed. Thousands are dead, and the atrocities are happening within the rowdy crowds. Rumors claim the Chinese military has been called out to quell the disturbances in Beijing. The noodle shop. Each of the noodle shops happen to be in the same place at the same time, just outside a vending machine ramen shop in a quiet side avenue. Here's a little map. Where did that go? The machine is a large device built into the wall, which dispenses hot noodles with various flavors. There are a handful of small tables scattered around in the front where people can eat and chat. The characters are unknown to one another. They just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Everyone is hungry and stuck waiting while an older man stares at the machine, unable to make a choice. Actually, he's just being rude, and if anyone comments or shows signs of impatience, he delights in dragging out this decision and making them wait even longer. The claustrophobic alley twists at an angle and is hemmed in by closed storefronts. Now, this has the advantage of blocking most of the noise from the busy streets. The evening has been marked by a light drizzle, but the umbrellas atop the ramen shop's tables keep this area mostly dry. Hey, Planer, welcome. We're just reading through the Pacifica adventure from the Day 1 adventures. The Pacifica axioms and world laws are now in effect. Deal each player a Pacifica Cosm card as a new sprinkle of rain starts, then make a low hissing or sucking sound. If anyone asks about the sound, allow a fine test. Success doesn't pin down the source, but does prevent the character from being surprised when the attack comes later. A good success picks out the sound as coming from an alley wall, and an outstanding success pinpoints the sound coming from atop the wall. If Ayaka is present, have her test against precognition to see a strange vision of teeth tearing into flesh. Whether anyone notices something amiss or not, the characters hear a sudden swell of screams around the corner toward the street. Jiangxi attack. Just then, a figure in a torn business suit leaps down from the roof above and lands on the rude man in front of the ramen machine. There's a sickening crunch as the man's head hits the pavement, and the creature takes a deep bite out of his neck. The attacker looks like he's already sustained mortal wounds himself. One of his legs looks broken, and the black blood drips down his chest. Padres is not sure if I'll ever run this one, but it would be fun with the right group. Somehow he's still moving, and the blood of the man by the vending machine now drips from his jaws as well. The madman, actually a Jiangxi, looks up at the characters and makes the sucking sound heard before. It's time for a drama card and a fear test. First thing up is the fear test. Each character must test spirit difficulty 10. If the test fails, the character is immediately very stymied. Note that fear only applies once each act for each type of creature, so further encounters with Jiangshi don't require another test, but encountering a new and different monster later on, such as the yokai, prompts a new fear test. If a character didn't inquire about the sound or failed the find test, he's surprised and can't play a destiny card into his action pool at the end of his turn. A character who succeeded at the find test places a destiny card in her action pool at the end of her turn normally. The characters are ordinary citizens, unprepared for violence. Some have weapons of their own, but the rest have to make do using chairs or table umbrellas as improvised clubs, strength +2 damage, become vulnerable on a miss. It's unlikely for any heroes to experience a moment of crisis during this encounter. There aren't really innocents to save or invaders to fight. Technically, the Jiangshi is an invader, but for now, the characters are simply fighting for their lives. An attempt to move past the Jiangshi and apply first aid to the rude man by the vending machine is fruitless. The man is beyond saving, but does trigger a moment of crisis. More likely, the heroes attempt to flee, which only makes the situation worse. A number of infected are just around the bend. At first, they stand in a creepy silhouette sniffing the air. The heroes can immediately tell something is wrong with them. Once approached, these figures snarl and attack with animal ferocity. Jiangshi 1. Infected humans 1 per 2 heroes. See page 78. These creatures don't become active unless someone tries to leave the alley. If the heroes suffer a setback or someone plays the mutation Cosm card, the rude man at the vending machine rises to his feet as a Jiangshi. Beyond the alley are hundreds more infected, tearing through the crowds in the busier streets. Bodies litter the pavement, and crazed throngs prowl for fresh meat. The group sees bodies littering the street, and dozens of crazed rioters chase them back towards the alley. Suffering wounds may also trigger a moment of crisis. Tragic endings. Pacifica isn't a very nice place, and the standard ending of this adventure involves the certain doom of each of the heroes, except perhaps one. The best the players can hope for is to discover the depth of Kanawa's involvement before the curtain falls. In part, this helps reinforce the horror-infused theme of the Cosm and establish it as a dangerous place for Storm Knights, even if no overt High Lord or invasion has been revealed. If Ayaka is in play, she should get constant visions of inevitable doom. Even if not every character can feel doom coming with all their senses, let that fatalism seep into every description. A truly spectacular idea by the players or a little GM intervention may lighten the ending for groups who just won't enjoy such downbeat finale. But without changes, only one character is ever seen again. Nice. So, this is an interesting way to frame this, and the fact that all of these adventures are kind of one-shot adventures, more or less. Some of them are a little longer; they might take you longer. But all of these are sort of, single session, more or less, adventures. I think that's a good place to do something like this. And I think because people kind of expect characters to survive in general, players are generally the heroes. And so you can make this kind of thing work, but you really got to talk to your players and let them know that in this adventure, the chance of their survival is very slim, or none at all, kind of depending on how you run it. And some people will like to play into that, knowing that they are going to not survive, will help them play into that. So I think that you can really make this adventure fun for players if they know they're gonna not make it ahead of time. Fighting that they're gonna survive, even though they're not going to, can be difficult, kind of as it says. It's the same kind of thing. Like one of my favorite games is Dark Sun, one of my favorite settings. And in that setting, like a lot of times in the old books, you would kind of have characters would either start or become slaves at some point, and that's a big part of that world. And it's difficult to make strong characters slaves. You kind of generally have to just kind of hand wave that stuff, and it's generally not fun if you don't want to become a slave and being made to become a slave. So it's the same sort of thing here. It's not really fun to kind of die if you think you're supposed to be the hero. So I would definitely say talk about this ahead of time with your players, so they understand what's going to happen. Yeah, Padre says it needs the right group, but it's designed as a TPK. Yeah, exactly. Hello, Fantasy Grounds College. Welcome. So the shopkeeper. Once the initial threat is defeated or at a dramatic moment, if it looks like the heroes are about to be overwhelmed, one of the shuttered storefronts suddenly rolls open, and an elderly man waves the group inside. "In here quickly," he cries, and then rolls down the steel shutters after everyone runs inside. Cosm Cards. Some Cosm Cards present a special challenge this early in the Pan-Pacifica timeline. Feud, any survivor might nurse a grudge if an infected slain by the hero turns out to have been a loved one or a family member. Is that a bite? This early in the outbreak, it's a paranoid police patrol rather than Kanawa forces. There is one officer per 2 heroes. Use the stats for Kanawa security troopers, but they aren't wearing armor and carry only 9mm pistols. The officers attack any wounded hero or demand that the group head for the safety of the police station if they all look healthy. Mutation. If played in the scene with a Jiangshi, even a slain one, that Jiangshi begins to writhe and transform into the yokai. That pursues the heroes starting in scene 3. If played while only the infected is present, one of them becomes a Jiangshi. If played in scene 4, when the yokai is present, things get really nasty. Its strength increases by 2, and it may spend a possibility to heal all of its wounds as a free action. Nice. Outbreak. The scenes at the shop and the Meiji Shrine both inevitably end with a group being forced to flee as infected arrive. Playing this card in either situation just puts the timing in the hands of the players and gives them some possibilities for their trouble. Sold out. Any of the introduced characters might betray the group in hopes of surviving just a little bit longer. While this may mean leaving a heroes in a sticky situation or pointing out a bite at an inconvenient time. You don't look so good. Rain-tainted blood from combat or even the initial release of the spores may have affected the character. Treat him as if he's been bitten. See the bitten sidebar on page 80. Scene 2. Escape from Harajuku. Standard scene. Outside, the sounds of a violent storm, torrential rain, and distant screams penetrate the thick walls. Any infected that remain outside scratch at the metal shuttered doors and windows, but stop once the storm reaches its height. Makamoto. The shopkeeper's name is Makamoto. He lives in an apartment above his business, a souvenir and toy shop. He looks terrified and paces nervously, but his place is secure, at least for now. Makoto has no family of his own and is inclined to treat younger characters like his sons or daughters, if they allow him to. He'll sacrifice his life for his new family if that bond is forged. He wears large saucer glasses and is nearly blind without them. Quote, "I never thought I'd see a night like this. We must stick together if we hope to survive until morning." Bad news. The news plays quietly on a television set while Makoto paces around the room. The major stories tick by and seem to get worse by the minute. The spontaneous rioting has broken out in Shanghai, Nanjing, and other cities nearby. Chinese officials have been referring to the rioters as Jiangshi, a term which means jumping vampires. The most recent claim is that Jiangshi are victims of a biological terrorist attack. Japan is suffering outbreaks of an infectious madness linked to the Jiangshi phenomenon seen in China. The worst incidents so far in the Harajuku district, where hundreds, possibly thousands, are dead. Police and military forces are attempting to quarantine the area to stem the spread of violence. Fires have begun spreading across the western portion of the district. All public transportation within Tokyo has stopped, and other services may be suspended at any time. Reports from North Korea indicate military strikes against population centers in and around Busan. Neither government has issued a statement. At this point, Makoto turns off the television in horror and disgust. Looting the store. The group has a chance to check over Makoto's business and his private room to scrounge for weapons. Each hero may make a standard find test and compare it to the scavenging in the shop chart below. Alternatively, a character may test persuasion to ask Makoto for something instead of searching for it. Communicating with the outside. None of the characters' mobile phones work correctly. Numbers all come through as busy and internet access is unavailable. This could be from usage and strain caused by the disaster, interference from other invasions, or a mixture of both. Any features that don't rely on connectivity still work fine. Leaving Harajuku. Outside, the storm lessens, but fresh sounds of infected, clawing, or pounding on the storefront shutter have started. "We have to get out of here," Makoto whispers. The group must decide where they plan to go. The news stories should tip the players off that between the quarantine and the fires, they aren't likely to get far. Makoto suggests strongly for finding somewhere safer nearby to hold out until morning. Kiku and Kosuke both have potential destinations in mind if either are in play. Makoto suggests the Meiji Shrine if no one else does, and heartily supports Kiku if she suggests it. From what Makoto's seen, he believes the infected are a supernatural threat. The shrine offers the best protection if that's true. If the heroes push for the train station or subway, Makoto reminds them that the trains aren't running, and those sites must be crowded with other people or the infected. The police station is likely the same or worse, especially if the police are enforcing the quarantine. Once the group has a destination in mind, or if they take too long to decide, have the shutter shake and dent inward from a stupendous impact. Then another. Something on the other side of that door is very strong and wants inside. It's time to leave. Travel in Harajuku. Whatever the group chooses as the destination, getting there alive is a dramatic skill resolution. They have 5 rounds to arrive without a major confrontation with the infected hordes. This is the table for scavenging. You can get a clawhammer, box cutters, a petrol bomb, makeshift shield, scenting masks, 38 revolver, a souvenir katana. In this case, each round represents minutes of cautious travel. If the task fails, the Storm Knights must face 2 bonus dice of infected. Rolling the infinity symbol brings 5 infected, plus the result of another die roll. Once the infected are defeated, the survivors arrive at the destination without any more trouble. The steps for traveling to any destination inside the quarantine area are: Step A, avoid wandering infected in the area. This is a challenging stealth test. Step B, discover a viable route. Treat this as a standard find or mine test. Step C, avoid a clumsy accident. Setting off a car alarms or tripping over piles of rubble are classic examples and cost the group time to reroute as the noise draws more infected. Avoiding an accident is an easy DN8 dexterity test. Step D, keep up the pace. This is a challenging DN12 strength test. The character who attempts this test is helping others along, scouting ahead, or generally performing the most strenuous activity. Dilemmas usually represent groups of infected or jiangshi along the route, fires, or effects of the worsening storm. Other encounters. Sprinkle these encounters in between the steps of the dramatic skill resolution as flavor. Barricade. Several empty cars are aflame near a shattered police barricade. There are piles of bodies with what appear to be gunshot wounds. A jiangshi prowls among the bodies and attacks the group if the group comes too close. Hanged man. A man's corpse hangs from the nearby streetlight. The corpse is still twitching and black blood runs down from his mouth and drips to the ground. His eyes are open and seem to be staring directly at the characters. Wheelchair. The characters find a broken and overturned wheelchair. There's a trail of blood leading behind a stack of trash cans, and as though someone were dragged back there. If the characters investigate, they find, mutating jiangshi are an ever-present danger. That's pretty cool. Oh, there's like eyeballs in there. Nice. They find a corpse of an old woman. She's badly injured in the rioting and dragged herself behind the trash cans to hide. Weeper. Curled up in the middle of the street is a softly weeping girl. Her face is pressed against her legs, but the trails of black liquid clearly stream from her eyes and drip down to the ground. If disturbed, she looks up with pitch black eyes, mouth open in a silent scream, and then she gurgles and dies. Nice. Different destinations. If the heroes pick a destination other than the Meiji Shrine or the Kanawa construction site, they find it strewn with bodies and crawling with infected. Roll 2 bonus dice to determine the number of infected present, such as if the group had failed the dramatic skill resolution. Traveling to another site requires a repeat of the dramatic skill resolution with the same steps. Scene 3, the Shrine. Standard scene. Meiji Shrine is a Shinto shrine dedicated to the deified spirits of Emperor Meiji and Empress Shokin. It sits just west of Harajuku in the midst of the beautiful evergreen forest. The shrine and the forest are normally a sea of serenity in the heart of Tokyo, but tonight the forest is unsettling. There may be monsters lurking behind every tree. The shrine is composed of an inner and outer area. The inner precinct holds the shrine itself and includes a museum which houses artifacts from the Emperor and Empress. The outer precinct includes public artworks, a variety of sports facilities, and the Meiji Memorial Hall. The hall was originally used for governmental meetings, but today is utilized for Shinto weddings and other private events. Once the group arrives at the shrine, they find the gates closed. As they approach, someone calls down to them, asking who they are and what they want. A persuasion test convinces those inside to let them in, otherwise they must climb the walls or find another way in. Visions of the future. If a Yaka is in play, she should occasionally get flashes of grim future events. These visions help set the horrific tone of the adventure and provide clues that move the plot along. Early glimpses should be of Jiangxi rending flesh or pursuing the group, and possibly flashes of the yokai scene from scene 4 that pursues them. She might also see the face of Makoto, the shopkeeper, before he opens his shuttered door, or images of the weapons at the Meiji Shrine. Her last glimpse of the future should be the Kanawa construction site. Beyond that, there's no future for poor Ayaka to see. Survivors. Inside, the characters find 4 survivors. All of them are eager to hear what the characters have seen and heard. Television broadcasts have reported the general situation, but that's different from first-hand accounts. They've been arguing constantly about whether to leave, as most of the crowds did, or remain in place until the authorities get everything under control. Ayumu Kaito. Ayumu is a young shrine maiden, a Shinto priestess who performs cleansing rituals and sells souvenirs. She's depressed and believes the emergence of monsters outside is a sign of the end of the world. She's still wearing the traditional red and white dress of her station. Quote, Empress Shokin was very kind and very devout. I wonder what she would do surrounded by creatures such as these. There's the maps. The Meiji Jinghu Shrine. So there's a treasury museum and a dojo up there. And here's looks like the main part. The Meiji Shrine is surrounded by thick woods and well-tended paths. The main site is protected by walls and gates, but the dojo and museum are a short hike away. Akira Sato. Akira Sato is an older man who was visiting the park with a friend Yusei. When the chaos hit, he and Yusei fled here, and his companion convinced him to stay when the other visitors and most of the staff evacuated. Now Akira is growing restless and thinks it's only a matter of time before the shrine is attacked. Akira wears a Western-style fishing hat and a dumpy t-shirt. Quote, don't be a coward. We should have left with the others. Yusei Fujimoto. Yusei has been Akira's friend for decades, though the two seldom see eye to eye. He's cautious and mild, which balances well with Akira's hot temper. When Ken arrived with his tales of violence at the train station, it reaffirmed Yusei's belief that hiding here in the shrine is the only option. Yusei only has 3 fingers on his hands. He learned a powerful lesson about taking chances at a young age. Don't be a fool. The only thing outside these walls is death. Kenshin Ken Matsuo. Ken is a well-dressed businessman who fled here from a disastrous scene in the train station. He's still shaken from his experience and is drunk. He tries to cover up his fear with belligerence and bravado. Quote, if I'm gonna die, I don't plan to do it sober. Treasure in the shrine. If the group looks or asks Ayumu, it turns out there's a surprising number of weapons available within the shrine. There's a dojo in the outer precinct that has various practice weapons, mostly blunt, but some sharp, that deal strength +2 damage. Best of all, there are suits of kendo armor in the lockers, which provide +2 armor to the torso. There's also the treasure museum in the inner precinct. Among the exhibits at the moment are true katanas, strength +3, damage API 1, gosuku, samurai armor, +3 armor, min 10 strength, max dex 8, fatigues, and even black powder pistols. Ayumu has no issues with raiding the dojo, but strongly protests against taking any of the treasures. A very hard DN16 persuasion test convinces her of the need. She won't try to stop the Storm Knights from taking the weapons if the test fails, but the disrespect shown may prompt her to make her move early. See fire in the temple below. Things turn bad. Although the survivors are safe at the moment, tensions at the shrine already run high, and the influx of newcomers doesn't help the situation. As the night deepens, the following events occur whenever dramatically appropriate. Ken's outburst. Ken continues to drink, growing louder and more belligerent as the night passes. He attempts to pick arguments with anyone. Yusei is quiet to point out that Ken's shouting may attract the infected. An intimidation persuasion test settles him down. A failed test or a physical attack pushes Ken too far, and he storms out of the shrine. Akira's disappearance. Akira and Yusei mostly bicker with one another when no one is watching. Akira climbs over the wall in an attempt to sneak home. Once Yusei realizes what has happened, he pleads with the others to go after his friend. A hard DN14 tracking test finds the exact spot Akira leapt on the wall. If any heroes attempt to follow him into the woods, they begin hearing the telltale sounds of Jiangshi in the trees. The creatures attack unless the heroes turn back immediately. Fire in the temple. Ayumu grows increasingly unhinged and spends most of her time away from the group. She passes through occasionally to see the latest news and cry a little. In her mind, her duty is to make the shrine itself into a funeral pyre. She has prepared the upper level of the tower to burn and plans to light it and herself aflame unless someone catches her and stops her. If she's talked down with a hard DN14 persuasion test or incapacitated, then lightning from the storm strikes the temple, igniting her arson materials anyway. The infected attack. Regardless of how the fire starts, the burning shrine draws the infected. It's time to abandon another potential sanctuary. Any remaining survivors flee into the forest away from the oncoming tide of infected and unknowingly toward the Kanawa Corporation construction site. Yusei stays and tries to hide in the shrine unless convinced to come along with a standard intimidation or persuasion test. A group of infected attack the Storm Knights as they leave. A setback of the conflict line brings a Jiangshi into the fray. Infected humans, 1 per hero. A new mutation. After the last infected falls, a much larger creature appears. It leaps onto one of the outer walls, and its grotesque shape is silhouetted against the fire. This is a yokai. It is one. If one was created earlier thanks to mutation Cosm card, this is the same specimen, now actively hunting the group. This isn't a battle the Storm Knights can win. If they stand and fight, it tries to kill one of the heroes, and then takes its time mutilating the body, giving the others time to escape. One of the other survivors may appear in time to become its victim instead. If the heroes manage to deal a wound to the yokai, another wave of infected appears. If the group tries to flee, they succeed, but the yokai follows. They hear the creature's cries in the distance behind them. To get away, the characters must move deeper across the forest, which takes them straight to the Kanawa construction site and an appointment with Destiny. Scene 4. The Kanawa site. Dramatic scene. The shrieks of the infected echo behind the characters as they trek through the forest. The woods suddenly give way to a tall metal barrier surrounding what looks like a construction site. The wall is dominated by large safety signs and smaller notices reading Kanawa Corporation, building the future. There is a gap in the plates in the wall where one of the metal sheets has been pried outward. If Ko is in play, he recognizes the handiwork of his gang. The wall is bent open enough for one person to squeeze inside at a time, just ahead of the oncoming horde. Automated defenses. Just inside are the bloody bodies of Ko's gang, and possibly some of the others who fled the shrine. Beyond the carnage, about 50 meters away, is a tall, partially constructed building with 2 strange gun turrets sitting outside its main entrance. Scattered around the construction yard are piles of materials, but no vehicles. There isn't a living thing in sight, but the gun tracks back and forth menacingly. The turrets are robots with a straightforward function. Scan the area and shoot anything that moves, unless they are recognized as authorized Kanawa personnel. The guns don't fire if a target remains perfectly still. Don't flip a drama card yet. Have each Storm Knight take a turn, and then the guns react and open fire. After that first exchange, it's possible to make a run straight for the building, but that approach is risky. A character can run meters equal to 3 times his dexterity, so even the fastest Storm Knights take more than a turn to cross the 50 meters into safety. There is cover around the outer edges of the construction yard, but none within 30 meters of the guns. The construction materials provide concealment as normal, and +6 toughness if the turrets only miss by the difference concealment provided. The gun turrets don't warrant full statistics, but a few numbers are useful for them. All the automated gun defenses are 8. Each has a toughness of each is a toughness 10 object, so 15 or more damage destroys it. A successful grapple may simply knock the turret down off its tripod, preventing it from firing. It's possible to trick the turret's DN 8 by throwing an object or using a maneuver to switch direction faster than the guns can rotate. A stymied or very stymied condition can save lives. Each turret attacks with fire combat. A hit deals 5 damage, armor piercing. The guns fire long bursts, +4 to hit, and multi-target to hit up to 3 people. Once a character gets past the turrets to the doorway, he's safe. He can approach the turrets from behind and knock them over or switch them off without a test. The doors are locked, but a hard DN 14 lockpicking test or heroic DN 18 strength test forces them open. If the effort to open the door fails, the infected begin entering the construction yard. If the automated guns are still functional, they hold the horde back long enough for the group to try again. Otherwise, the creatures rush the attack. Infected, 3 per hero. Inside the building. From the outside, the building appeared under construction, but inside, dim blue lights illuminate finished hallways. The scaffolding and girders outside mask a complete and highly secure structure. A man in a white lab coat carries a stack of plastic trays into the hallway, just as the Storm Knights enter. The trays are piled high with stacked plastic cubes, and inside each cube is a twisted-looking seed about the size of a walnut. Sometimes there's nowhere left to go but up. The scientist is stunned to see the heroes in the hallway. He attempts to push back into the room he came from and close the door without dropping his trays. It doesn't even require a test to push into the lab and stop him from triggering a security alarm, so long as the Storm Knights try. The Y and Seed Lab. The room the scientist came from is filled with computers, lab equipment, and piles of readouts. The entire far wall is composed of large glass windows with a view into a huge central chamber filled with hazy green atmosphere. The chamber looks like a greenhouse with artificial lighting and 2 men in thick hazmat suits tending rows of strange-looking plants. The plants look like leafy heads of lettuce. Most are closed, but a few are open, like a blossoming flower, revealing a human skull in the center. The chamber is dominated by a single massive bulb, roughly the size of the men in protective gear. Its buds are closed but quiver slightly as if the thing were breathing. Better killing through chemistry. The 2 men inside the chamber don't notice the heroes. The scientist from the hall is not a combatant, and an easy DN 8 intimidation test forces him to answer any questions the Storm Knights might ask. A standard evidence analysis test discovers the information as well, and in a form the heroes can take with them. Between the 2 methods, the heroes might learn the following. The large bulb is called a yin seed. The scientists are tasked with studying it and collecting its spores. Kanama Corporation owns this facility. It is attempting to both weaponize the spores and develop a cure for those infected by them. The scientists have run tests on human exposure to the spores, and the symptoms are identical to the infected rioting in Harajuku. Not all victims follow the same pathology. The abnormals were among the research material transported to headquarters. This facility is collecting data from the spores intentionally released in the Harajuku. This site has received orders to secure its specimens and data for transport to a lab in the Bonin Islands. An aircraft is on the way to pick up the researchers and materials. There's a landing pad on the building's roof, and once everything is loaded aboard the transport, a flash fire is scheduled to burn any remaining evidence and cleanse the lab. The most crucial piece of information is the arrival of the helicopter, since that offers a potential means of escape. Once the heroes have collected the information, the 2 researchers inside the chamber head toward the airlock back to the lab. How the heroes decide to deal with these men and the researcher they've been questioning is up to them. Race to the top. A loud crash sounds as something breaks through the building's outer doors. A peek into the hallway or the security screens reveals the yokai has arrived. It sniffs the air and moves toward the lab, still searching for its prey. The yokai makes short work of the lab's doors. The heroes have a choice to make a last stand against the creature or flee to the helicopter pad. If any researchers are still around, they beg the heroes to take them to the helicopter pad on the roof. Whatever the group decides, flip a new drama card as the yokai smashes through the doors of the lab. If the heroes have already faced the creature and managed to deal it any wounds, those have regenerated, as have the creature's possibilities. After the end of the first round, the noise of a large horde of infected becomes audible. During the second round, the horde appears, joining the chase or attacking any brave Storm Knights who strayed behind a fight. For those attempting to make it to the helicopter pad, the scene plays out as a chase. Each step of the chase represents 2 floors of unconnected stairwells or elevators. The helicopter pad is atop the 8th floor and reached when step D is completed. The yokai and infected may only attack characters of the same step in the chase. If they have a target, they attack rather than trying to gain distance in the chase. If no targets are available, the vile things attempt to reach a step that contains someone to attack. As a foot chase, each side tests dexterity to gain a step. Each player tests separately, so one character might swiftly reach the helicopter pad in temporary safety, while another is still stuck at the beginning, being ravaged by infected. Divide the infected into a group for each character. Gaining steps in a chase isn't something the villains can use combined actions for, but attacking heroes at the same step is. The yokai isn't trying to get to the pad, it's intent on killing any Storm Knights it can reach. It isn't mindless. When necessary, it may maneuver to stymie prey, escaping its clutches by cutting off escape routes, slashing elevator cables, and so on. The fewer characters who reach the helicopter pad for the finale, the better. Be mean. No one should make it out alive. In the chase, a dilemma may represent a blocked route waiting for an elevator's doors or getting lost. Yokai 1, infected 4 per hero. End of the line. Any survivors who reach the roof experience a moment of hope. A vehicle is landing, but there's not a helicopter. It's a sleek vertical takeoff and landing type of jet the characters have never seen before. Its wings are rotated and its rear hatch is already open as it touches down on the pad. A squad of 10 men in black modern armor styled similar to samurai armor fan out onto the helicopter. Onto the helicopter pad with crisp military precision. Each carries an ultra-modern looking firearm. Their commander steps down a few moments later. He wears the same armor but no helmet. His features are Korean and handsome, and he wears his long black hair in a ponytail. His expression seems to be a permanent, wary scowl. "Stormers, keep one of the intruders alive for study and questioning. Purge the rest," he hisses. "The facility is a loss. Trigger the burn protocol immediately." The scene fades to black with the surrounding gunfire. Kanawa security troopers 10. If the Storm Knights took a particularly clever measure, such as disguising themselves using hazmat suits or clothing from the researchers, they may be able to bluff their way onto the VTOL with a heroic DN-18 persuasion test. In such a case, the survivors witness the VTOL launch just as the yokai emerges onto the ceiling, and then fiery explosions collapse the entire structure. After that, the survivors' fate remains ambiguous. Epilogue. Days later, the fire around the Harajuku are out. Kanawa's security forces have surrounded and quarantined the entire district. Inside the cordon, a former construction site belonging to the Kanawa Corporation lies in ruins. Deep within that burned wreckage, something or someone lurches awake. Dun, dun, dun. Here are the stats for the infected humans, the Jiangxi, the researchers. So let's see. I'm going to read some of the details here. Infected human. Infected humans are living beings driven mad by the contagion. Black tears smear their faces of these unfortunate souls. They are mindless killers bent on consuming the flesh of the living. Most die within 24 hours. A portion of those who perish then mutate into even more dangerous Jiangxi. At present, there is no known cure. Jiangxi. Pan-Pacifica's hopping vampires are humans infected with a particularly terrible strain of the virus. The creatures are ravenously hungry and spread the infection with a bite. When a victim becomes a Jiangxi, her skin puckers and tightens. Muscles contract until they're wound like springs, increasing their effective strength. Heavier victims contract in the same way, but the additional skin and organs bulge out between their muscular bands. The contraction leaves this creature stiff and slow on their feet, but capable of powerful leaps, hence their name. Special abilities, bites and claws, fear, infected, jump. A Jiangshi can leap double its movement as a simple action, but doing so leaves it vulnerable. Relentless, they ignore shock and they are undead. Nice. The yokai. Infected humans are most dangerous in large groups. Yokai. This specimen has white skin, long clawed fingers, and naturally long forearms and ankles. A bony jaw rips out of the bottom of its once human face. Yokai are abnormal, infected, and may have different appearances or special abilities to reflect that. This one is quick, hungry, and intent on slaying the Storm Knights. So they have fear, and they are infected. Ords KO'd or defeated by this creature become infected themselves. Reality rated character slain by infected rise as Jiangshi sometime within the act. Nice. Possibility hunger. When reality rated characters soaks damage dealt by this creature, it regains the possibility spent to soak. Nice. Regeneration, relentless, and undead. Bitten. A bite from the infected creatures quickly turns Ords into raving monsters themselves, but what happens when a Storm Knight is bitten? A bite occurs when a creature carrying the contagion, infected humans, Jiangshi, or yokai, deals damage equal to or greater than the target's toughness, even if it doesn't cause a wound. Less than that just causes scratches. If a Storm Knight successfully soaks the damage, there's no bite. It was a possible outcome that was averted. A bitten reality-rated character who dies from any reason rises as an undead Jiangshi. The timing is extremely variable. Some Jiangshi spring up immediately after death, others take hours to begin moving. If a hero is bitten in this adventure, immediately give him one of the infected handouts on these pages. Encourage the player to keep the text of the handouts secret. Part of the fun is suspicion others begin to feel. Award the possibilities generously when players do a good job with the symptoms or reactions to them. At the end of each scene, collect any infected handouts and then deal a new one to each affected character for the next scene. These handouts are meant for this adventure, but they can be used during regular play in Pacifica as well. The risk of infection vanishes at the end of the act if the character hasn't succumbed. The GM can change handouts or effects at any time. The contagion is constantly mutating. If a character dies, let the player control an extra Jiangshi during the chase in Scene 4. This Jiangshi may or may not be the fallen hero's body. Nice. That's cool. So it gives you, something to do. It gives players something to do, if they die. I like that. Infected, cold. You're cold, shivering. Complain about how you can't get warm. If others check, you are cold and clammy to the touch, and your heart rate is extremely low. At your discretion, you may play dead at some point during the scene. When you are discovered, you aren't breathing and have no heartbeat. An easy DN8 first aid test revives you, and you gain a possibility. If the test fails or no one tries, you die and become a Jiangshi. Nice. Infected hunger. You're starving and desperate for food. Complain about your hunger and let your stomach growl. Actually eating anything makes you feel queasy and doesn't sate your appetite anyway. You suffer a -1 penalty on all tests for the rest of the scene, but you gain a possibility for your trouble. Nice. Oh, there's more. Sweet. Confused. You are easily distracted by bright lights and loud noises. Your memories are hazy, and sometimes you don't even remember your own name or what you're doing. At your discretion, sacrifice your turn during an encounter to wander towards lights or noises in a daze. Gain a possibility when you do so. Next turn, you snap out of it and act normally. Infected agony. It hurts, you're stiff, and every little movement causes you pain. Whine about the pain and stiffness as often as you can. Your shock drops by 2 for the remainder of the scene, but you gain a possibility. If you get KO'd during the scene test for defeat, even if you still have wounds. If you get KO'd during the scene test for defeat, even if you still have wounds. If the test fails, you awaken as a Jiangshi. Infected rage. You are irritable and ready to snap. Snarl, growl, and yell angrily to keep everyone away from you. At your discretion, lash out at another character who upsets you. Make a real quick attack against the character, and if you deal a wound, you gain a possibility. After the test, you can be as contrite as you like. Infected, numb. You are emotionally distant and seem disconnected from your own body. Constantly test yourself by doing things that should cause pain just to see if they do. For the rest of the scene, you don't suffer wound penalties. You gain a possibility if you take a wound during the scene without soaking, and someone else has to point it out for you. Nice. So that was a Pan-Pacific adventure. Definitely seems interesting, and I'm definitely, I think I'd like to run this one. It's about, we've been almost an hour. I just want to remind you guys, next week the Tharkold crowdfunding will go live, so be sure to check that out. That'll be June 23rd through July 14th. So if you're interested in the Tharkold, check that out. There have been 3 previews so far, and I just got a message that the new preview is ready in draft, so I will be checking that out and making that go live today. So check out preview 4 for the Tharkold. Should be online later this afternoon. So for Ulisses Spiel, I'm Robert Adichie. We'll see you on Monday. Bye bye.